Aloha and good morning. Welcome to chapel. Well, here we go. The moment you've all been waiting for, or at least the moment you've been waiting for about a week, the results of my two truths and a lie. Now, before I read the polling results and reveal what my lie is, I want to thank those of you who participated by guessing, and for those of you who also shared your own two truths and a lie. More on the sharing bit in a moment, but your participation gave me a small taste of the interactivity that I love and I miss about having chapel in the worship center. And, Lord willing, hopefully we'll get back to there soon. All right, enough stalling. The results. 30% of you thought my lie was that I used to do musical theater. 18.3% of you thought my lie was that I had eaten pig brains, and 51.7% of you thought my lie was that I had been to 15 countries. Well, I have done musical theater. As someone who is a bass baritone, I only got a leading role once, and because those usually go to tenors, dudes with like higher voices. But I often enjoyed being a part of the chorus, which is sort of the other actors and actresses on stage who sing and dance, and kind of maybe not intentionally trying to upstage the leads, but to say, hey, I'm here too. Okay. I've also eaten pig brains. See, years ago, my wife and I went to this restaurant and they served tapas. And tapas is like a Spanish thing for like small plates. The idea is that instead of having one main course, you would have like multiple little courses that you could try and then, get a more experience with the food. Well, I saw head cheese on the menu and I asked the waiter, "Hey, what is head cheese?" And he basically said it was pig brains. So I was like, all right, sign me up, I'll try it. And it was interesting. I'd definitely do it again, but maybe not on the regular. Now, full disclosure, I actually looked up what head cheese was in sort of prepping for all this. And head cheese is made from all the various parts of a pig's head, including, but not always, the brain. So I may not have actually eaten pig brains, even though that's what I was told. So just full disclosure, gotta be honest, right? That's what we're talking about, honest, okay? So, I have been to Canada, Mexico, Japan, Guam, Hong Kong, Macau, England, France, Luxembourg, Austria, Switzerland, Germany, the Philippines, and Western Samoa. I think I forgot something there. Canada, Mexico, Japan, Guam, Hong Kong, Macau, England, France, Luxembourg, Austria, Italy, Switzerland, Germany, the Philippines, and Western Samoa. There's my 15. 15 places, not 15 countries. Hong Kong, I think it was still a British protectorate when I was still there. Guam is a U.S. territory, so 15 different places outside of the United States, but not all of them countries. Okay. Now I gotta say this again. This has been pretty fun, especially for me because I've received some of your two truths and a lie, and I apologize that as of the filming of this video, I haven't necessarily responded to all of them, but I hope to do so before this video goes live, or at least before you see it. Okay. Now, one of the interesting trends that emerged when receiving your submissions was a request from some of you that I not share the two truths and a lie in chapel. Don't worry, I won't do it. But it did get me thinking. Often the person we put forward is not necessarily the whole picture of who we are, and we cover that up with an exterior defense that we only remove in safe company. Think about it. What are some things about you that only your family knows? Or maybe only your best friend knows? Or heck, only God knows. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that a lot of us are living a lie and being fake. What I am saying is that most of us live guarded and only share certain parts of ourselves with a select few trusted people. For example, there are things that my wife knows about me that no one else knows. Things that are for her only. What I am saying is that it is normal to live guarded. Why? Because underneath the guard is sensitive stuff. And we don't necessarily need to change it or toughen up. We just need to protect it. Last week, we started looking at the various pieces of the armor of God. Spiritual armor intended to protect us from our adversaries, our spiritual adversaries. We'll pick up where we left off last week in Ephesians 6 and recap some of what we looked at to give us some context. Paul writes in Ephesians 6, 13 through 14, "Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you've done everything, to stand. Stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place." The part we're going to talk about today is stand firm then with the breastplate of righteousness in place. Before moving on to what it represents, let's look at what a breastplate is and what it does. For the Roman soldier, one of whom, to which Paul was likely chained while dictating this letter from prison, the breastplate was constructed from several overlapping pieces of metal that would then go over the tunic to provide protection for the majority of the soldier's vital organs. See, you can sustain injuries in your extremities. Say, you could have both of your arms cut off and still fight. I mean, after all, it's just a flesh wound. But if you receive significant damage to your upper torso, which contains, among other things, your heart and your lungs, you will likely lose the fight and perhaps even your life. The breastplate was worn by the soldier to stand firm, to stand protected, and to fight. So what is the breastplate's relationship to righteousness? And what does righteousness mean? Well, to answer the former question, we have to look at what is meant by righteousness, which honestly could be the subject of several chapel messages. So please, don't consider what I'm about to say comprehensive in any way. First, we want to look at how Paul uses the word elsewhere in Ephesians to give us an idea of what he means. The word appears in only two other places, and for our purposes, we'll look at its use in Ephesians 4:22 through 24, which says, "You were taught, with regards to your former way of life, to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, to be made new in the attitude of your minds, to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness." Paul is reminding the Christians at Ephesus of what they were taught about how to live as Christians. They were to put off their former selves and put on the new self. The image here is that of changing one's clothes. The old clothes will no longer do. You are a new person in Christ. You got to put on new clothes. Well, what of these new clothes, this new self? It is to be created like God in righteousness and holiness. Here the word righteousness refers to God's moral character as evidenced by its pairing with the word holiness. So where the belt of truth refers to uprightness of speech, the breastplate of righteousness refers to the uprightness of action. But could it mean more? As mentioned previously, the word righteousness is a frequent theme in the Bible generally and in Paul's letters specifically. And one of the first verses I memorized after becoming a Christian some 15 years ago is Galatians 20 through 21, which says, "I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. I do not set aside the grace of God, for if righteousness could be gained by the law, Christ died for nothing." Here and throughout Galatians, the word righteousness doesn't simply refer to moral character, but also, and more importantly, a legal standing. The problem that Paul was addressing in the Galatian church was that they thought that in addition to receiving Jesus, they needed to follow the Old Testament law to the letter in order to be accepted by God. Paul tells them emphatically no, and says that the only way we are declared righteous, the only way we are accepted by God, the only way that we are justified is by the righteousness of God that God imputes to us as a function of being in Christ. If we understand righteousness in this way, then the breastplate of righteousness refers to the vital protection provided by the justification effectuated by the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. But do we have to choose? Do we have to choose between these two ideas of righteousness? I don't think so. As G.G. Findlay put it, the completeness of pardon for past offense and the integrity of character that belongs to the justified life are woven together into an impenetrable mail. Just so you know, the word mail here is used like armor, like chain mail, okay? Not things that you receive from the post office. To put it clearly, the breastplate of righteousness is that which spiritually protects us because of the righteousness of God that he has given to those in Christ and the righteous way in which Christians should live as a result. So how would one put on this breastplate of righteousness? Well, in Romans 1:16 through 17, which is one of the most famous passages in the Bible and a verse that practically catalyzed the Protestant Reformation, we read, For I am not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God that brings salvation to everyone who believes, first to the Jew, then the Gentile. For in the gospel the righteousness of God is revealed, a righteousness that is by faith from first to last, just as it is written, the righteous will live by faith. Righteousness is received by faith, but what do we mean by faith? Well, what often comes to mind when we think of the word faith is belief. Like, I believe in God. However, the word has a much fuller meaning than mere mental assent to a series of propositions. The word carries with it a connotation of trust. If I have faith in you, I believe in you because I trust you. That trust is not based on facts that I know about you. It's based on a relationship that I have with you. As it is spiritual armor, the breastplate of righteousness cannot merely be put on. It must be received. And to receive it and the protection it affords, you must put your trust in God and then live faithfully, trusting Him. Just as several of you trusted me to protect your privacy when you shared your two truths and a lie, and which I've done, so too we trust in God to protect us from our spiritual enemies by His righteousness. If faith in Jesus and receiving righteousness is something that you want to discuss further, I invite you to ask one of your teachers, or maybe you could hit me up, kvalente, kcsohana.net, and I'd be more than happy to have these sorts of conversations with you. In closing, you may be wondering what I've been wearing this whole time. Well, this is a plate carrier, a modern-day breastplate. It contains 2 plates of level 3 armor, front and back, and it's designed to cover the vital organs. Well, what does level 3 mean? Well, level 3 means that it can protect the user from rifle rounds. How do they know this? Well, in order to be classified as level 3 armor, it must withstand 6 rounds of 7.62 Full Metal Jacket. For those of you who like to play FPSs, it's basically the round that the AK-47 uses. The thing is, my specific plates have not been shot at 6 times with an AK-47. The plates that served as the prototype have. I am trusting that the armor I wear can withstand the same barrage. In the same way, Jesus, the pioneer of our faith, took all that the devil had to throw at him and withstood the assault. As we put our righteousness, or belay that, as we put on His righteousness as a breastplate, so can we. Well, that's chapel for today. Pray that you have a wonderful day. Enjoy your 3-day weekend. Try to get in some time with your family and those that you care about. But until next time, aloha. God bless.